All right, welcome to Bye R. Kelly. Unpacking R. Kelly Part 2. I'm Alex Haynes.
And I'm Tiffanie.
All right, Tiff, welcome back.
Welcome back.
So this is day two that we are unpacking this mess, this 30-year mess of R. Kelly's mess. 30 years of It's been 30 years of R. Kelly's mess, approximately. And it's been going on for a long time. He's 30, yeah, he's probably since he was 18. Who knows? Probably before then. And we are coming together. If you're just tuning in, this is the second night of us unpacking not just the docu-series that aired on Lifetime, Surviving R. Kelly, but the answers, the responses, the actions that we need to take as a community. And our discussion, if you missed it last night, it aired all day on our network on Boss FM. You can go to any of our channels and pretty much find it. The discussion from yesterday is on YouTube. We've got a pretty exciting group of people hanging out with us tonight, and we'll continue to unpack this mess. Um, Before I go on, anything you want to start with, Tiff?
Nothing outside of our agenda for tonight. I know that we have some pretty deep conversational topics that we want to hit, and I definitely want to go over some of articles and alleged or potential cases coming about. So I know we'll get into that, but other than that,
Yeah, I can't wait for us to get into that because I'm not going to say that I'm a skeptic, but I am not easily swayed.
mm-hmm.
So similar into the ways that you couldn't sway me if you just told me that something happened without some concrete proof. People taking action, especially when people have taken action before, lip service does nothing for me. And
Right,
so I think as we unpack everything tonight and we see like DA, I mean, people are speaking now because there's pressure. There's some people that are too nervous to say what they're really thinking, so they're just siding with everyone else because it's what's popular right now. So time is
right.
going to tell, what this looks like as it plays out over time. And while I'm not really concerned about R. Kelly at all, the more, like I said yesterday, it's crazy. And I didn't share the full story, but I'll talk about it. I said yesterday that 10 years ago I was reporting on R. Kelly and this mess, and I came across a clip of an old show to where we had even made a song out of R. Kelly's nonsense, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, it runs so deep, and people are so nonchalant about it. I think we hit some really interesting topics yesterday, and I want to go deeper into those. But then, if we can, I want to start to tap into some solutions. If I'm being honest, I don't know if we will ever get the resolve that we're looking for with R. Kelly because I don't think anybody knows exactly what they want. There's a whole spectrum of what people are asking for and what they would hope to have and what they're interested in having. But seriously, I don't know if that will ever happen. But there were some things that popped off today. You want to talk about that?
Yeah. So one thing, just to clear some things up, I saw and know that there was an article circulating about Illinois stripping the statute of limitations for child sex abuse and sex crimes in the state. That is not new. That was actually done in August of 2017. The governor modified one of the state bills to basically go from victims had 20 years to report to there's just no statute of limitations. So that's not new. That was done in 2017. But because I saw and know that it was circulating and had resurfaced, I just wanted to clear that up. Um, Allegedly, Fulton County is investigating regarding the Johns Creek home where the alleged sex cult and sex slaves were held. We don't have confirmation from the Fulton County DA. He actually said no comment when he was asked about it. But
So
Gerald,
you said they are investigating, or are they? I mean, what does that mean? If they're not
There
willing to
was
comment, how do we know
they're
it's
not
an
willing to
investigation?
comment. The attorney that is representing Timothy Savage, which is Joycelyn Savage's father, along with some of the other victims, said that Fulton County was investigating, but Fulton County DA has not come out and actually stated that they were investigating like Cook County did. Cook County in Chicago has come out and said that they are actually speaking to potential victims, the families of potential victims in Chicago,
I
and they've
saw,
asked victims to come forward.
now I saw that DA asking for people to come forward. Again, I guess we have to wait and see with this lip service. How did that make you feel that there was some action?
I have mixed feelings about it. The attorney, his name is Gerald Griggs. Griggs said something interesting in an interview he did with one of our local stations here in Atlanta. Excuse me. Where he basically said, you know, a lot of times it starts with rumors and it starts with, as you say, lip service until it becomes something more. And he made the comparison to Bill Cosby. You know, it started with little rumors and then the rumors got bigger and bigger and bigger until victims came out. And now look at where we are with that. So I am hopeful, but I'm not optimistic just because of how these things normally turn out. I do hope that it's not just lip service, and I do hope that they are investigating, and I do hope that something comes of it. But the fact that, and I get why Fulton County is not actually saying anything or confirming anything, they want to get their story straight. But I also know that they were asked and called on to investigate back in, again, 2017, and nothing was done. Johns Creek handed over their entire file on R. Kelly, and like it was like, here, you should look at this, and they didn't do anything, and that was 2 years ago, or a year and a half ago. So I'm hopeful. I'm not optimistic. You're muted, Alex.
I am. I brought Kia and I brought Joshua into the conversation because I want them to chime in. I'm great that, I mean, I'm glad that they are looking into. I mean, I would say, being from Atlanta, I would be. I'm happier that Fulton County is looking into it instead of the city of Atlanta. I still, for me, it's not enough. Like I don't. That it means absolutely nothing. It's the same way that I could get up from my desk and decide that I want to have a press conference today based on the information or what I saw over the weekend, and make a statement of what I'm going to do. Unless someone's holding Fulton County accountable, we're not going to see anything. Kia, what do you think?
Who are the people who are responsible for holding them accountable? And I feel like one thing that we've seen, even with the Centoya Brown case, is like the public holding public officials accountable for their actions and putting pressure on them to make sure that the job gets done. So I think it's calling the DA and making sure that the investigation is happening, and for the media to keep the pressure on and to keep asking these questions, and not to interfere with the investigation, but to make sure that people are investigating and something happens. Because I'm very concerned about the girls who are still in his custody right now.
And I think that's a great point. Josh, thoughts on that?
I think this is one of these moments when I look at our society and I look at our legislatures and I realize that sometimes the law falls short. And I think this is a case in which many of us feel that he might need to be in jail, and or there needs to be some law that actively goes and gets these girls out, but the law might actually not work in our favor for something like that. And that's why I feel like some of us need to start using the political process to our advantage. Not so much that we need to put pressure on law enforcement to do something when they might not be able to, but look at our actual literal elected officials, the people that we voted for every 2 years, every 4 years, who sit in governors, mansions, who sit in our state legislatures, who may even sit on our city council boards to be like, well, we need to have better laws on the books to prevent this type of thing from happening. Because, for some people, I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but, for some people, it's like the rest of us look at it and say, like, man, he's holding these girls hostage, essentially. But the law might say they showed up of their own volition. Ain't nothing we can do
Exactly.
about it.
And so to that point, that literally I was thinking the same thing, right? Okay, so we are all outraged that he's
Right,
holding these
outraged.
women. You know, like we are. There's so much outrage. We're all upset. They're being held against their will. You know, even when I was watching, and I'll be honest, like I said, I'm no documentary is
Sure.
just gonna convince me outright. Like who's to say that these girls had the best home life like that? Who's to say that they were
Yeah.
like in love? You know, their parent like. There are controlling parents. This is a real
Yeah.
thing. Now, I'm not saying that that's where that's where I concluded. Like that wasn't my conclusion at the end of watching it, but that's a thought that I had going into it because it could be like that. Who knows? They could have had plans for her since she was 2, and then she decided at 16, I'm gonna do my own thing. Legally, she's now able to do her own thing, and she's there now. At that, we know that's not what's happening right now, but that's the case that can be made. So if when people ask the question like why hasn't anyone gone in there and gotten them, who can come in here and get me? And that's like that's the thing. So if we wanted to change, we have to be involved in the lawmaking process. That also means that if we're not going to get involved in the laws that are being passed, that we stay involved with what's going on in our local jurisdictions. And we also know that we have a voting problem. So
Yeah.
if we unpack this, like I said, there's so much there. Key, I think you had a great suggestion. Like, who's going to hold them accountable? Who's going to stay on the press? Who's going to stay on the law enforcement officials? And I think people have to do that. But if we stay on them and they are enforcing the current laws, what else can we do?
Right. I think part of the problem is, and not just when it comes to sexual assault and sexual abuse and sex crimes in general, part of the problem in this country in general is that we are governing ourselves according to laws that were written decades, centuries ago in some cases. And we are just now starting to change those laws.
And that's all of the laws, though. Like, and we know how long it takes. Like, one of the main things that we would have to first focus on is how long it takes to get things changed.
Right.
Like, I mean, the system is just not built for things to happen swiftly.
That's a lie. That's a lie.
No,
that's a lie.
I mean,
that's a lie.
Tell me why.
I guess what I'm saying is like when we want to get the Brady bill passed, and we want to get some of these gun control bills passed, and we want to get this immigration bill passed, and we want to get this, that, and that third bill passed. We have watched state legislatures left and right pass bills. Like even just this last session, we've watched state legislatures pass bills that have limited governors, opposing political side governors here in the state of North Carolina and again in Wisconsin. They got this. Can I cuss? I'm sorry. Can I cuss on here?
Go for it.
They got this shit passed like at the drop of a hat. That is about the will of these people who are in elected office. And I'm going to put it back a little bit. I want to take a societal view of like, we need to put pressure on our elected officials on this one. They vote fast for exactly what they want to, what they got the willpower for. And until
you say willpower, I say incentive. So they vote fast for things that are going to be better for them in the end.
Right, sure. Yeah, I mean, sure. But
this is a major problem. This is, like, I'm serious. Like, and I'm just playing devil's advocate at this point. Like, okay, we are outraged. Everyone's upset. We want to put pressure on them. The incentive is they get some grown women out of a grown man's house. We got to show them more incentive than that. So
it's easy incentive. I think again we forget that the power of this lies in the people. These people got to get reelected every 2 years at the state level and at the congressional level. I don't care how long you've been in office. We watched it with Alexandria Ocasio. I don't care how long you've been in office. You still got to get reelected every 2 years. And until we realize that we have the power to, we got the power.
That requires us to be involved throughout the legislative session and not just showing up at the polls every 2-4 years, which we have enough problems showing up at the polls. So that requires us to know what's going on at the Gold Dome in Georgia, know what laws are on the book, know which ones need to be changed, and even know who our legislators are so we can contact them about these laws. And
go ahead, Kid. Finish.
No, I was going to say, like, there are like House district meetings that are going on in our neighborhoods that we're unaware of and we're not showing up where we can get this information.
Right. So I think if I had to, because I don't want to say that any of us are minimalizing how easy this is, but a
No.
lot of this takes time. And in my opinion, I think it takes a little bit of hope. And right now, I don't
It
think
takes a lot of bit of hope.
I think that I don't think that us, our community, I don't think that the hope is even there in the system. The hope, I mean, the incentive right now is to protect these girls, right? Or is it?
Right. So I mean, I guess for me, my hope is not in elected officials to make the right decision. I don't expect them to do that. My hope is
Because they won't.
they won't, right? Because it's never going to be politically in their advantage to necessarily do so. My hope, if I have any hope, is in the people to apply themselves to the system. It's exactly what Kia said. Like, to be involved, to know that these things take I'm talking to my friends, and I got some friends that actually worked on, even I see y'all from Georgia, like part of this is just the basic political organizing, like having people tied in a consistent manner. Like, just because, the Democrats lost with Stacey Abrams does not mean that for the next 2 years, not even the next 4, but just the next 2 years, we still got shit that we got to do. We got shit that we can do. We got shit that needs to be organized and put together, coalesce, so that we are a consistent political machine that just doesn't show up when it's a presidential election, or just doesn't even show up when it's a midterm. That we got stuff that happens in between.
And
Go ahead, Kia.
I think a huge part of that is we aren't politically educated. And so we don't understand the process enough to know how to be involved when it's not show up at the polls. And what people miss about Stacey Abrams' story is she started registering voters back in 2014 with the New Georgia project. So it was a build up, a lot of on the ground, door to door knocking political work going that got her as close as she did to winning that election. And the way we win in the next 2 years is to keep building on the work that she's done and not to just say we lost and walk away and give up. You fail forward and you keep building that power so you can win.
I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. I was just going to say, who's going to do that work? Because if we all, like, we need to be making these strides in our communities individually, and it literally starts with me, you. Like, it literally, if it doesn't start here, it's not going to start. And we can wait, and we can talk, and we can tweet, and we do. I mean, especially this panel right here, like, we do those things, but it does take going to those meetings that no one knows about, Kia, like showing up, having your black ass face there. Like, you need to be there. Your ass has to be there. And then every time they look over, they going to look at you liplessly, and you got to be like, look back with these full lips and be like, look, we need to get something done. And if we choose not to do that, we'll be having this same conversation 10 years from now.
But I think it comes to one of the words that Joshua said, of being consistent, because then there comes the problem of, well, I voted for Stacey Abrams, and I voted for not Donald Trump, and these others that we elected into the office basically nixed my vote. I voted to not have the Gulch in Atlanta developed. I went to that meeting. I voiced my opinion. Y'all made the decision of what you wanted to do before you had that meeting in the first place, so then my voice wasn't necessarily heard. So it's kind of a double-edged sword when it comes to, okay, I can do everything I can in my power to be involved, to go to the meetings, to voice my concerns, to express my opinion, to write my representatives. I've written representatives before, but even when we show up, show out, be loud and proud, all of that, sometimes we're still cheated out of our voice. And then you have the discouragement of, well, I showed up, I showed out, and I still lost, and I still didn't get the results, and the system still didn't work for me. And now I personally think that doesn't mean you stop. That just means you keep going until something changes. That just means you keep going until we get actual elected officials who will listen to our voices and listen and pay attention to us showing up and showing out. But I do see a lot of people in the community saying, look, I tried, it didn't work. we got cheated once again. They're never going to listen to us. So why am I even trying and putting forth the effort?
And they say it, and we keep going, because that's really the, like, this at this point. I think that's the only option that we have. Like, yeah, we're gonna get cheated. We get it. It's been like this. It's not we're getting cheated now, but we are not the first Black generation in this country. So we're getting cheated. They were getting cheated. The ones before them were getting cheated, and the ones after us will get cheated until, like I just said, we have to be in the faces all the time. I think I want to transition a little bit, because this is like, okay, we take action. I want to go back. I just want to go back just for a second, and again talk about responsibility. And I think that this documentary specifically showed gaps. I think that, but the consistent thing that I tweeted during the entire thing was that A, parents have a responsibility, B, adults have a responsibility, and then C, just people, you have a responsibility. And I think that if anything could have been conveyed more to me, I would have liked to see somebody take responsibility for something in what we saw. And I don't know that I saw that. Kia, your thoughts there?
I can't remember his name, but he was the music executive who was like, I went to these parties and I knew all these girls were underage. And someone on Twitter pointed out, like, he was pointing the fingers at everyone else, but they were like, you were there. You knew that these girls were underage. You could have done something. So there was a void of responsibility all throughout that documentary, where people, even the guy who talked about, like, knowing Aaliyah wanted him to talk to her and not showing up for her. We set these kids up to be in this situation by not enabling them. And I guess if I want if I want people to take anything away from this, I want them to use this documentary as a mirror and hold it up to themselves and their community, so that they can take responsibility for the sexual violence that's going on in their own communities, in their churches and homes, and with their soccer coaches and things of this nature.
Go down the line, like all the way around. It's a full circle. And we're like, you can watch it and you can point fingers, but you sit next to it every single day.
Yes.
I parallel this a lot of times. I talk about, like, people, especially us, our community. We sit here and we want to talk about Donald Trump all the damn time, but you sit in the church while your pastor lies to you every single week, and you don't hold him accountable while he's sleeping with the first and the second and the third lady, and maybe the Ursha. So, like, there's a lack of accountability that we have, and I think what we uncoupled yesterday was some of this is very cultural, and it's because we choose not to have conversations, we choose not to address things, and we sweep things under the rug, and then every few kids, I think, especially, I mean, I would say in my family, I'm that one that, okay, everyone else wants to sweep it out of the rug, and I have conversations with everybody about everything. If I'm wondering something, I want to know. I'm gonna ask, like, what the hell is this, and who is that, and whose kid is this, and when did this happen, and, like, how come no one knows? How come no one else knows? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
What are we, like? Why are we hiding it? And I guess the question, I'm bringing Monica into the conversation too. Monica, how are you? Oh, sorry. Now,
how are
Monica,
you?
how are you? I'm good.
Good.
How are you?
Can you hear me?
Just your thoughts on, yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
Your thoughts on, I guess, the conversation that we're having right now when it comes to responsibility. And in this, I'm assuming that you saw the Surviving R. Kelly documentary, or at least pieces of it. And when you look at this from who would have some responsibility, or why people aren't taking responsibility, what are your thoughts there?
So my thoughts are, I mean, ultimately there were a lot of people that I feel like at the end of the day, we're partially responsible for allowing or facilitating, something like this to even take place or to continue to take place. I do think that it's cultural to a point, but I wouldn't say so much cultural as I would say maybe economics based. In regards to, when you're looking at it, it's like, okay, would you really send your meal ticket to jail where he can't feed everybody, or would you continue to maybe just look the other way and everybody still gets a little piece of the pie? I mean, when it comes down to it, it's already been done, right? And I can honestly say that, I mean, I was adopted, so I live and breathe with Caucasians every day. And, there's the same things that's happening in that culture as there are in the Black community.
Very interesting. I think I think that perspective is interesting and it's valid and valuable. Because I do think also, and one thing that I was also saying consistently is money played a huge piece in this. Like, like, and when I think about it, if we're unpacking it, because that's what we're doing. I think it was the Clarys. I think the Clarys. That it was one of the families, Azriel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
for me, where I sit, and I think we've got her photo. Her parents always knew that she could sing, and this is what I saw. If someone has a different view, I would love to hear it. They've always known that she could sing. They had no clue. First of all, I don't get how you know the whole history of R. Kelly and go take your 17-year-old to an R. Kelly concert. But whatever, you did it. She goes to the concert. She gets pulled up on the stage. He takes an interest in her. And I'm watching this and I see money, money, money. Like, first of all, they may not have been thinking money when they brought her there, but what went out of their mind was R. Kelly's past. Because once he had an interest in her, it was like, oh, well, this is her dream. And she's also thinking, this is my dream. And so she sees money, they see money, he sees opportunity. So money, responsibility, I'm so conflicted. Like I'm thinking like, no, this is horrible that this happened, but come on, like come on. And in some instances, I think there were people that understood what my issue with it, and there were other people like, no, R. Kelly, R. Kelly, R. Kelly, and I'm like, no, her parents, because there's some responsibility here. There's an onus on them to do the right thing, and I think that they thought it wouldn't happen to them, and maybe that's what they thought.
They thought
that's exactly what he thought. He said that
they thought they could out-parent a predator.
Right.
They thought that their presence was enough to not allow this man to prey on their child, and it's not. You cannot out-parent a predator.
Kia, I have not. Now that one, I'm gonna take that to the bank. I need to tweet that right now.
I'm like,
you cannot, because
and
really, honestly, there are parents right now that are still like, you know what? If I had the opportunity, I would have kept my eyes on my daughter. But hell, I let her go up there with them too. And there are people, I've heard them say it. They're like, yeah, like what we see is what we see. But I wouldn't have been that. And I'm like,
I mean,
you can't out-parent a predator. You're just not gonna do. Like, the predator is
essentially every kid that was involved, parent allowed them. I mean, come on. In what world was your parent at 14, 15, 16 like, hey, bye, see you, have fun in Chicago with a man I've never met? Like, seriously, like, for real.
No,
and your parent didn't call every single, like, no. Every single one of these parents in some way, shape, or form was complicit in allowing this to happen. And like, I'm not trying to victimize the victims any further.
No, and you know what? I'm not going to put that on you. I don't think that's what you're doing at all. But I think you have a good point. Like, what parents is gonna do that. Like, and I tell people, and Tiff is I've known Tiff is the person I've known, the friend that I've known the longest. Out of all the parents in the world, my dad is probably the most overprotective being on, and it's mostly just because he's really into his kids. He loves his kids, and there's not a moment. If he could do it to me right now, he would call me every hour to see if I was doing like even now when he calls, he's like, "What are you doing?" Like it's none of your business. But it's that same thing. So that was my experience. That's what I lived with. And hell, he knows Tiffany like that. He probably would call her and ask her the same thing, like, "What the hell are you doing?" And it's like, and so I think when I think about it like that, I'm like watching it, and yeah, it's just not adding up. Kia, you were gonna say something?
What's interesting is we all watched the New Edition documentary with them as little kids, and no one asked why their parents weren't traveling with them when they were out touring. In fact, we understood why their parents weren't with them, because their parents were at home working, trying to make money because their checks weren't coming in yet.
Yeah, and I get that, but New Edition was a group and they were touring. You know what I'm saying? These are just girls that he has an interest in, and he's like, "Oh, you can sing. Why don't you just come on tour with me?" Well, no. Like, what are you like? What? Like what? What? Like what? And even if they were to use that as a justification, I'm still like, what? Like what? No. And it goes down to I just think knowing the history, even that part, that part. Let's say that you knew that there were lawsuits against him, and the charges had been dropped, and you're like, I'm comfortable with it from that to that point, but I can't get past you knowing that in some way he's had relations with 14-year-olds and 15-year-olds, and you feel like the situation is safe based on what, and you know what it is though? You know what it is, and this is just setting on me right now. People think that people with money are just safe, period. And that's part of the reason why Donald Trump is the president also. Because yeah, there's a lot of stupid people. Yeah, there's but a lot of people, if you talk to them, they were like, "Well, he's rich.
He's a good businessman," which he's not. You're right, though. I mean, the parent, what was her name? Dominique Gardner's mom said that on the series. She said, "Hey, money can buy you anything." And it did. I mean, the hotel, well, we'll talk about that episode later, I know. But I agree with you. I think that money bought him a posse. Money bought him, sounded like from the docuseries, a couple of police officers. Money buys you enabling assistant, accountant, security guard. Money buys you silence, unfortunately, a lot of the time. It buys people silence. A lot of these parents were paid off silently. And in some of those interviews, he settled out of court quite a bit. So
here's the thing, and you touch on something. I'm trying to stay away from a media analysis of this documentary, but you're right. I think I want to touch, Gerald, on responsibility and your thoughts there, and I'm going to get some other questions in.
Responsibility. Well, we were just actually talking in the comments about that. I don't know if you guys saw that. I guess I'll ruffle a few feathers because nobody said it, and I don't really care if people get mad. But have we talked about the girls themselves taking responsibility? As a former teacher, and this is very important, women and men to hear, that I've seen some of the most cunning students with great home lives come from great economic backgrounds that will sit and pull stunts to get attention, or will put people.
I hear you, and I hear you, but I can't rock with that just because, and I hear you, because there are some terrible, terrible kids on this planet. Okay, don't care. I know that, you know that, we all know that. There are some horrible children. They're just horrible. Like you're a horrible child. You're gonna be a horrible adult. You're just horrible. Spawn of Satan. But at the end of the day, you're still a child. So somebody has to take, like, literally, if we're gonna go and deal with the damn laws that we have now, like, I definitely don't think even an 18-year-old has all of the cognitive skills that they need to make the right decisions at the right time. Cunning or not, at mature or not. My dad said this to me, like probably when I was like 25, probably in regards to dating. The most mature 18-year-old will never be a 30-year-old. I don't care. Like, it just doesn't matter. Like, I don't care how mature you are, how cunning you are, how smart you are. You're still a child, and you can't also out mature a predator. If we're going to use Kia's logic here, you can't, like, you are a child. And yes, children are opportunists, and they will listen if they saw the opportunity that, and to that point, if I had to think about a cunning child, and again, we're not doing victim blaming here.
No, not at all.
The last girl on the documentary that said that she flew to the R. Kelly concert, maybe she was 17, or maybe she said she was 19. She went 2 years ago, and then she went again. But if you are 19 and you're going to an R. Kelly concert on your own, and we're talking about cunning children, and you said that you saw one of the victims on TMZ, girl, you've done the research, you know the story. And if you're 19, if you were 19, you were barely born when everything went down with Aaliyah, if you were born at all. So you definitely did your research. You know, you're still a victim, you're still a survivor, but
are you, or did you see dollar signs?
But here's the thing here. You can con and trick your parents into sneaking out the house and being somewhere where you're not going to. You cannot con and trick a grown man into sleeping with a child if that's not what he wants to do.
Now, thank you. Now that is that on that, because that, like, if you are a grown man and you want to sleep with children, that's what you're gonna do. You're gonna sleep with children. But that's not, you weren't conned into it. It wasn't something that you like had to do. It's something that you chose to do, and it's problematic. Tiff, did I miss something?
No, I'm feeling away about a couple of the victims in the series, but I admit when I was watching the latter couple of episodes of the docuseries, I'm not gonna lie, when some of the grown women came on and so and so met R. Kelly at 35. I literally had to pause my TV and say, now hold
you already know we weren't watching it together, but I was like,
right. Like,
so you 35 and you work in radio, which means
work in radio.
Your ass, you've reported on this before.
You had to. You are doing the job.
That's part of the job. You've literally done the reporting. You sat there and said, these are the allegations. And if you work at a hip hop station, you jazz it up a little bit. Man, I hope that's not what's going on with your boy. We got Ignition coming up. We still playing this music, but we reporting on it. So
that's exactly what happened.
Yes, we are looking sideways at you
but she's
at
still
35.
Right. But she still quit her job, flew out there.
She got flew
to be with him. Now here is where I really had to pause my series. She said her friend sent her the sex tape, which I can't even understand how that alone didn't get him in jail.
I'm gonna let you finish. I would just like to say I was trying to stay away from my media analysis of this, because some of this was problematic. There was a lot of information. Around episode 5, I literally had to pump my brakes. But Tiff, I'm gonna let you finish. So
her friend sent her the sex tape. She called allegedly, because one side of the story. I'm still in the media. I gotta say allegedly. She allegedly calls R. Kelly and he cusses her clean out, calls her out of her name, goes off all the things and all of that. And then her next sentence said, and when I flew back and we were in the car and he beat me up, I said, what?
You did all that moving?
Yes, I paused it and I did everything that I just did on this camera. Because there's no way in hell that you're going to call me, clean out my name, cuss me out, do all the things, and I'm not coming to meet you with a bat and a posse, if I'm coming at all.
Okay, so
but this is a healed person speaking, and she admitted that she came from an abusive situation that she probably didn't get healing from in the first place, and then went into this second abusive situation. So I had to acknowledge that where I am in my 30s and where she clearly was in her 30s are two different places.
So, and this is the, oh my God, this is going to be hard for me to say. And the answer I could be wrong. I mean, I'm looking for correction here. You too, Tiff, you use yourself as an example, so I'm going to use you. You're at one place, you're a healed person. She's in a place, she comes from an abusive relationship, and she got herself in this situation, and this is what happened to her. At 35, I get it. I understand what happened, and I'm sorry. But is that our fault? Is that our problem? Is this our battle? And now, I'm saying, I'm not saying there are people like this is what they do. But the collective public, is this my issue? If I have an issue at 35, I'm not looking for the public to have sympathy on me, because at 35, I should know that I need to go get some help.
But not everybody knows. She didn't know. And I said heal, but I'm healing.
I agree with that. But like you said, not everyone knows. Everyone not knowing still is not my problem.
It is if it's a community predator.
And I think there are communities where abusive relationships are normalized. And if she comes from a community like that, I think the community has, or the larger society has, some responsibility to make sure that she's educated to know this isn't normal and you deserve better than this.
Right.
It was very disappointing to see a 35-year-old woman, especially, and I think I personally had a different reaction to like pre-trial people who showed up and post-trial when we start talking about the parents taking them to the shows and this 35-year-old woman entering this relationship.
Because we must talk about that.
Yeah,
we must. We got it. That's part of this. Like,
yeah,
we got to talk about it. Like, what the hell?
Yeah, you have to make a big disconnection from what was public knowledge to enter into relationships with this man at this point. But our favorite celebrities did too.
Right.
Our favorite gospel singers did.
I mean, to that point, they are people just like us. We lift them as role models, but they are people just like us.
But I think that it's still, to go back to your question, Alex, it's still, and I believe in, we talked yesterday about community healing and healing each other and healing as individuals and as a collective unit of women and community-wide in general. I think it was our responsibility as a community to hold our legislators, to hold our elected officials, to hold whatever we could have done to make sure that this predator, because a predator is a community problem. So even if the 35-year-old, 40-year-old, whatever, is not necessarily, her healing journey is not necessarily my individual problem, it is my problem that there's a predator in the community. What can I be doing as a part of that community to make sure that this predator is not preying on anyone of any age, of any race?
Okay. All right. So I hear you. I think that, and we got to deal with the laws, right?
Right.
The predator is in the community, and the predator was a predator 20 years ago. So that's the first issue we have at being addressed. I still am on the fence about somebody that's 35. If you get involved with a predator at 35 as a conscious decision, and I'm gonna remove R. Kelly from this talk right now and put someone else there. If Josie goes and gets into and she's 37, she goes and gets into an abusive relationship with a known predator and sex offender, and she keeps herself in that situation, and then she comes and cries out and says, "Why didn't anybody protect me?" Josie, you went and you put yourself in harm's way with this predator who's a registered sex offender. So I think that 35-year-old, that's just where I am with it. And I don't know how to leave that place, because I hear what you're saying, that we have to have some collective responsibility for the predators. But when we talk about responsibility, 35-year-old women, men, people must hold themselves responsible as well. Monica, did you have something on that?
I mean, I really just wanted to say that I think that, as in regards to the 35-year-old woman, maybe she's a little slow. You know, I'm not.
I did not mean to laugh. I did not mean to laugh.
Yes, you did.
I did not mean to laugh,
Hear
but
me out. Hear me out. In regards to that, like, I feel like she's an anomaly. Okay, I feel like she just kind of was able to like fall in with the fold. Like, she already knew what the deal was. Like, clearly she was past the age that he really wanted. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not really sure like how she even really got into the mix, other than the fact that, you know, she clearly had been in a lot of abusive relationships. That's probably all she knew. And she was probably money thirsty as well when it came down to it, you know, and she was thinking, well, how bad can it really be? I mean, this dude looks good. You know, all the girls are getting payouts. Why not just stick my toe in there and, you know, figure out what it's really about? And I think that she got sucked in
it's
further.
so interesting that you say that, because I have a comment right here, and I saw someone, I'm looking for the comment. I'll try to paraphrase it. He basically used her as an example and said, you know, where they're showing us that he's a predator and he's preying on younger women, but here he likes this woman that's 35. So how much of this is being force fed to us? And I think that his thought is limited, obviously, right? So we have the facts, we know what's going on here. But obviously people and their thinking, it goes like, this is how people think. They're looking at it from a logical standpoint. This is what I'm hearing, this is what I'm hearing, this is what I'm seeing. But then they see 19, 19, 35. And regardless of whether we think a 19-year-old has a fully developed adult brain, which we know that they don't, the law says they're an adult. So you have the people that are just looking at it very literally, 19, 19, 19, 24, 35. And they're like, okay, so y'all are outraged about things that happened 20 years ago. Let's talk about right now. And this is why you have a subset of people that aren't as outraged. Josh, I saw you nodding your head a lot in the last discussion. Your thoughts?
I don't have much to say for somebody who's grown. I You're right. There's a legalistic part of me that's like, even if you're 18, I know that's a hard, dividing line, because one day you were 17 and suddenly we want to treat you like a kid, and the next day you turn 18, suddenly you become an adult. I mean, clearly, I mean, I would say this. I work with college students. When they come in as freshmen, only 3 months ago they were asking for permission to go to the bathroom, and then suddenly, we give them all these adult responsibilities, knowing that their brains are not fully developed. Again, that's a question. I think it's a legal question. Do we have laws that we act as though our laws are, what's what I'm looking for, blankets that cover all, but we know that they're not. So you hope you have judges. That's the whole point of actual judiciary, to make fair decisions and interpret the law fairly and appropriately. But we know that doesn't happen for a myriad of reasons that we need to go into, tonight, about how certain, subsets of the populace don't get treated fairly. But in terms of a 35-year-old person, like, I don't have much. I'm sorry, this sounds really bad. I mean, I'm thinking of even, family members of, my own family.
You know what? I'm gonna tell you not to feel bad, because we are in the same place. I get it. I understand. I am so sorry this happened.
Yeah.
But you're 35.
You're 35. You're literally older than me. I don't have much to say in the way of like, well, you went into this with your eyes open.
So let me do this. because I think that we are putting a lot in a number, and I have had experiences where people's age does not necessarily match their mental age. And so I think when we say, oh, she was 35, oh, she was 35, oh, she was 35, we are thinking about 35 from a healthy 35-year-old standpoint, when mentally she could be stuck at the age of 17, 18, depending on what the trauma was in her life, what she's been through, depending on if she or anybody else has any mental illnesses, depression is real, or anything else. So 35 is, a number, but that may not necessarily be where she is mentally.
I can hear that. I mean, it's just like what your other commenters say. She might be slow, and I mean, I understand that becomes somewhat of a slight, joke. But sure, Then my question to you is, Tiffanie, like, I hear that. So what do we do with that? We're talking about a singularity here. We're talking about one person. Like, what do we do?
That's a good question. I want everyone to answer. I'm gonna answer first. I'm not doing a damn thing with it because you're 35. And I'm sorry that you're slow, and I'm sorry that there's something like, I'm not doing nothing with it. Like, and I'm also not interested. You know what I'm saying? Tiff, go ahead, because Tiff is Miss Compassion today, but I don't give a damn. Like, I'm sorry, I just don't, like, 35, like you, Josh. I'm not there yet. Not there.
Okay, so what if she got married at 18? Or she got married at 17.
Yeah, we put a whole bunch of ifs here. Like, that's a singularity.
Go ahead, Keith.
That's not everybody's case.
I don't think we would say the same thing to a 35-year-old woman who was married to a domestic abuser, who was in a domestic.
We wouldn't.
And I think we have to look at these as the same. She chose to be she chose to stay. I mean, but women choose to stay in abusive relationships every day. And you have to
versus going into one.
Josh, let her get it out.
Go ahead.
People choose to stay in domestic violent relationships every day for a myriad of reasons. But I don't think it's fair to say it's their fault when we don't know the logic behind their reasons.
Those are
so that may be true. However, from a responsibility standpoint, what I said initially is, because you're 35, it's not my responsibility.
Here's my thing with what Kia said. There's a difference between women who choose to stay versus women that choose to get in one. I'll put that on both sides. Even men who might be in same gender loving relationships, who might, go into domestic abusive relationships. I don't put that. That's a blanket statement for me. There's one thing, I get why people choose to stay. That's a very different situation. You go into something you didn't know was going to be the case. But we're talking about she going into a situation where you've heard the stories, you know the rumors. That's like
reported on the story.
Yeah.
Like, she reported. Like, I know that there's somebody that worked at a station that she works at has tape of her talking about this story. Okay,
and let me just say this, as a native Chicagoan, none of this was news to me. Not a single part of this was news to me.
As an Atlantan,
right?
It wasn't news to me either.
It wasn't news to
so
me
I get all. That. I get that. So when we, this is rough. I get it. I am compassionate, and I know that segment did not sound compassionate at all. It sounded like I had no compassion at all. But what I'm saying, no, I didn't call. I just said I don't give a damn. Monica called her slow, and I agree because she may be. But this is just, I think it's very hard for me. It was hard for me to connect those dots. Since we're in this vein, Tiff, I said I wanted to avoid this piece. So you guys watched. Josh, you watched it. Kia, you watched it. Tiff, you watched it. I'm here. I'm here. I'm present. I was here, episode 1, episode 2, episode 3, episode 4. Before I go on, Kia, have you ever been on any type of set? Not just a live set, but like a recording set, maybe a TV show, reality show, or something like that?
No, not anything of that level. Like private recording type, but not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Josh, how about you?
I've never been on a reality show.
Okay, so and Tiff, you work in film and radio, so you know you may know where I'm going. So here I am, right? I'm watching I I, I'm watching the docuseries, whatever they want to call it. And if you know, you guys watch, everyone watches documentaries, or you've seen them. If you don't watch them now, you watch them at some point. There's usually reenactments, and the reason that they do reenactments is because they have to reenact what's going on because they're telling a story.
Alex.
So we get to episode 5, and not
Y'all know
only
him way too
was
well to already
there
be laughing.
not a reenactment. So I'm gonna give you an example because I don't watch Love and Hip Hop. I did at one point. I work in radio, similar to Miss 35, and I've had to report on this, and I've been on sets, and I've seen this, and so I'm just gonna make it very simple, and then I'm gonna move on because I think I'm gonna make my point without having to say it. So Dominique's mother is, there's all the commercials. We saw the commercials. There's an Instagram commercial that show her. We saw that she was gonna go find her daughter. She was committed to that. That's great. When I tell you how important placement, lighting, and and everything is for a series or a documentary reality show to capture you walking from your car to the building, you have to do it at least 10 times. Oh, we didn't get the door slam. Oh, we want you to close it from the other side. We want you to park in this space and not this space. We need you to walk into the building 10 times. So you walk back and forth, shots not right, back and forth. Oh no, a shadow came. Oh, a cloud covered the sun. Like literally, this is what happens. So my mind goes there because I work in this industry, and I knew like there's absolutely no way. Like there's just no way she just walked. So not just that. She as a grown woman walked into this hotel, and she told the hotel manager that her daughter was here, who's also a grown woman. Because at this point, I want you to imagine you staying in a hotel. That's what I want you to do. I want you to place yourself in a hotel. And maybe maybe you're on a rendezvous. Who knows what you're doing? I don't know. Maybe you're having, a orgy because that's your secret fetish and no one knows about it. Like that's what you're doing. And you disappear and you would disappear for a weekend. But like me, I'll put myself in the example. I escaped to a hotel for the weekend, but my dad being my dad, and this is something he would really do because he's overprotective. He shows up at the hotel, and I know that I can actually picture him there. Like flexing, he probably will lie and say he's in the FBI. Like he has a whole bunch of tactics. Like that's who he is. He just wants to know. My sister's 21. I feel for her all day long. Like I just listen to her vent because I know what she's going through. So you waltzed into the hotel. You told them not only did they call on your behalf, which they would normally do, but they let you and your camera crew, after they watched you in the parking lot filming the scene over and over and over again because they didn't know you were coming. And they did not get any sign on any live, like there's tons of waivers that have to be signed. What if you slipped on your way into the hotel? The hotel doesn't want to be liable. Like all of this, do I need to go on?
No.
So let me say this because I think that I don't want this to come off like we are trying to take away from the docuseries, and we're not. However, being the people that we are, I know Alex is like me, and probably some of y'all, Kia, Joshua, you may be like this too. When I am sitting and watching something, it is very difficult for me, no matter what it is, to just sit and watch it. I am analyzing absolutely everything. So I'm gonna be honest, and one of my best friends, Erica, is watching this. Her and her husband we all watched it together. She will confirm my story. The moment that she walked into the hotel, I went, wait a minute. So you just gonna let her walk up to the room? I literally said, "What camera are they using?" Because they showed one person filming with the phone camera, the camera on their phone, but then there was another camera that was very clear, and I was like, "That ain't no GoPro. Like that's not." You're muted, Alex. You were going off. You're still muted, Alex. He don't want
Alex
you to break.
unmuted.
I did
Alex
that.
unmuted.
It's
There we
because
go.
I'm cussing a lot, so that's why
Alex
it
unmuted.
doesn't
There you
want to let
go.
me in. Here's the thing. You notice that, Tiff, and I know you probably let. I mean, we all let Catfish go, but we can all think about an episode of Catfish. While Neve and his little friend stands here with this little picture, is this disposable camera, like he's filming the whole thing when there's a full crew. And I know, like, this is gonna break hearts. I'm telling you because, like, even that, like, there's people watching live now. It's gonna replay, and then I will own these words as I always do because at the end of the day, I know that when you don't know, you just don't know. So you see, television is very enticing. You see what you see, and then you just that's why so many people like just watch it, and they be all in these storylines and everything. I'll be like, look, bro. Okay. All right. None of this is happening. So, and I'm mentioning this. I want to get back to what we were talking about because it's important. But I felt like when we got to episode 5 and pieces of episode 6, it cheapened the documentary, and I hated that because they could have left that out. You gave us a lot of facts. You gave us a lot of things that we believe. For me, I'm the type of person, we have one issue voters and I have one embellishment and then I got to question everything. So it was too heavy for me to go back and watch it all. But once you started embellishing, when she got up to Dominique's room, Dominique knew she was coming. Dominique couldn't even act. She opened the door like, who is that with you? Like, girl.
What you're saying though makes me feel better because when I was watching that scene, I was like, this is irresponsible as hell for them to be going up, not knowing what's going on with these girls, not knowing who's in the room. Like, you're putting everyone at risk. So I am relieved to find out.
That's the reason. That's why I asked you. That's why I asked you how much you knew because that was really her and that was really Dominique. That was really her. Those are really them.
Mm-hmm.
But in a documentary, you see a reenactment. We're seeing live because, it's enticing. And then it's like, I'm going to tell you exactly where my mind went. And then we're going to get back to what's important. But I'm like, oh my God, they know these people watch reality TV. This is also Lifetime. We have been bamboozled and swindled. And they combined, like truthful, factual information. And so that's why some of the outrage, like, I'm like, pump your brakes. I can't, like, I hear you. I'm not discrediting. And my question is valid because I know how this works. So it's easy for them to force feed things to us. And I think that as a community and as a society, when it comes to responsibility, I have a responsibility to educate on stuff like this because we'll have people that are going buck wild off of what they saw. And I'm like, hold on. Like, we can't do that just yet. Josh, go ahead.
So, I mean, this documentary notwithstanding, we just don't have a lot of Black media outlets that do a good job of educating. Anybody knows me.
What do you want me to do? White people own them. Okay.
Well,
what do you want? I don't know what you want.
But I guess my point is, like, even still with places like The Root, I mean, and I haven't long since had an issue with them in terms of, like, I can appreciate, the stories that get shared and whatnot, but it's like, we're not doing educating. We're really doing a lot of entertainment and telling this and transmitting this information. And then it goes back to what we said earlier in this conversation. And we wonder why we're not involved in the political process. And we seriously wonder about these things because the times we have the platforms, the times in which we have a captive audience that will actually listen to what we have to say, we don't take the burden of educating, we don't take it seriously enough. And so I agree with you. Like, something as small as that one scene cheapens the entire process. And it's just enough for people who are not aware of how these things work to be like, well, wait, is that really true
Very,
now?
yeah, it makes it very difficult for you to
And
trust what's going on.
and I guess
Absolutely.
what I'm saying is like as Black folk, particularly, I mean, this is gonna sound elitist on my part, and I mean I'll own this, but for everyday Black folk, you know what I'm saying? People who maybe don't vote, who last time they voted might have been 2012. They didn't vote this time. They thought Hillary was gonna win. I mean, just it's gonna sound elitist, but I'm just saying, like for people like that who are not as just aware of some of how these things work, they actually will watch something like this. An opportunity which we had a captive audience. They was watching it from beginning to end. You get to this one part, and it's like, phew. I'm like, well,
Yeah, but you know what? Here's the thing. Here's the thing. Because of a lack of education, it wasn't a shut off moment for everybody. You know, like people were
everybody
still
knows.
captivated. Like I was literally, if I should have put some screenshots from some of my text messages up. Like people texting me like, when Dominique was rescued by her mother, I was so touched. And I'm sitting here like man, I could have been touched, but I wasn't because
I
that's
wasn't.
not what happened.
That's not what
Because
happened.
that's not what happened.
Surely
Well,
wasn't.
it really to lessen the cheapening of the moment, all they had to do instead of doing the whole shaky camera scene and embellishing with all of that, give me an update at the end of that episode saying Dominique's mom actually found her and rescued her and brought her home to safety, and then show that second diary scene of her talking about saving her and all of that. I don't need you to show me you going into the hotel and going up to the door, kind of having a conversation with the hotel
her
manager.
not really being like, or her not really being on the phone, or like, because let me take y'all back to your reality shows. Whenever they're on the phone with somebody, they're always on what?
Speaker. Or they at least hold the phone out a little bit so that you can hear both sides of the conversation. Or
There was one way to handle that scene.
like,
Yeah,
like how did the hotel manager know she was still outside to be able to walk outside and say your daughter's on the phone?
It was
You
all
know
bad
how.
from beginning to end. It was bad from beginning to end. That was the one scene. Even my students just today were talking about that. They were like, "So what did you think?" I'm like, "I'm not doing that with y'all today."
Nope.
Yeah, Jared, you had a comment.
At which point, oh, it was only one way to handle that scene. It should have been there. It looked like an episode of Cheaters, and I'm good.
And you know, oh my God,
And that's what.
And you know, I can't believe you said that.
Cheaters, that's right.
So I have seen everything. I've been on the set of one seaters filming, and it went exactly like that in Atlanta. It was in Atlanta. Key, I could tell you where it was, right on Marietta Street, across from M Street Apartments, across from M Street Apartments.
At least it
There's
wasn't
like
Piper Street.
yeah, and the same thing happened. They had like the van come up with the person come up. They had the woman put the wig on, and she walked up and down the street 8 times. And they had a sign on one side of the restaurant said "closed to the public," but they had full people in there, waitresses in there, coming to the tables, dropping. Oh, this is Cheaters. Oh, well, damn. And yes, that's what episode 5 was. Okay, so I didn't. I think I'm frozen. Oh, I'm
There
back.
you go.
You're back.
Yeah, about to say it was.
Yeah, I was definitely frozen.
I thought we all were frozen until I saw Joshua's eyes move.
I think we all were. So, Tiff, there was another piece of that we wanted to, another piece, and we had some other questions that we wanted to tackle. You want to start with those because I don't want us to run out of time.
Just so you guys know, I literally was just looking at those questions. Are
you muted? Tiff? Yeah, you are. So, you being
I can hear her.
And the first, it doesn't matter. I can't hear her at all.
Well, that's just odd.
Still can't hear
If I can hear you.
Oh, now you're moving.
Okay.
Okay. Well, Tiff, I can't hear you, so that doesn't help because I'll have to bring you back. I'll take you out, bring you back in. All right. So, Josh and Gerald, I'll ask you this while I have the two of you here. When we come back to this, there's a piece of this that eventually is going to, at least some would say that this happens in our communities. This and it may be like maybe not R. Kelly, but it may be your uncle, or it is a dad, or a brother, or a mother. Where does forgiveness come into this conversation?
Oh, as a Christian, I forgive and I move
Yeah,
on
okay.
and I hold it in my heart. Like I don't. That doesn't mean I forget. It doesn't mean that I bang with you anymore. But forgiveness isn't about the person. It's about myself and my own healing. I had situations. Luckily, it was nothing sexual where I realized that people that I was genetically linked to were not healthy for me, and they did things that were terrible. And I realized that if I were to not forgive them, that I would be as miserable as they were. And so, in order for me to keep my sanity and to be the Christian that I claim to be, I forgive you. So, yeah, it might be hard. It might take
That's
a long
huge.
time.
Now, I
But
mean, I think forgiveness is healthy. You know, it's healthy for the
it's
soul.
very
But I think
healthy.
in this situation, Kia, I saw your face like, like I wasn't gonna drop that bomb, but your thoughts.
I think as Christians, we have really bad teachings on forgiveness. We center
Come on.
we center the
Come on.
person who has done the
Gosh.
wrong.
Come on.
And
Here we
our
go.
priority is bringing them back into community. So we pressure the people who have been harmed or the people who are in danger to forgive harmful people before these people are contrite, before they have invested any effort into changing their behavior,
Mm.
before they've done any type of restitution or proven that they're safe to be back in our community.
Let me update this while you're talking. Go ahead.
So all an R. Kelly or a preacher or an uncle has to do is to say, I'm sorry, and pay us lip service. And we see it as our responsibility to bring them back in the community. They can go
That's
back in the
good.
pulpit. They
That's
can do more collaborations. They can come to the family cookout. But the people in that community are still in danger because there's been no effort to
Or
get them
evidence.
any help. And I think that's what really bothered me when the man said that R. Kelly came to him and he was like, I need help. I need to stop recording these. And his response was, I prayed for him. No, sir. We need you to do more than pray for him. This man needs serious help because he's harming people.
Monica, I saw you reacting there.
Yes, I mean, I definitely agree with Tiff. I mean, essentially, I mean, when it comes down to it, we need to hold these people accountable, but because, you know, a lot of it's like faith-based or, you know, money-based, we tend to look the other way. I mean, it's really about as simple as that, you know?
Yeah, I get it. Josh.
I will say, in a larger scheme of things, there are some moments in which I wish that we as a society or as communities performed a little bit more grace to people in terms of giving them a second chance.
Give me an example.
I'm trying to think of one off the top of my head. Let me be clear when I say this. This is not one of them, though. I don't believe that grace needs to be performed for somebody like R.
Ever?
Kelly. Nah, for a predator like this, it's like, no. Because I guess the thing is, where is the consequence? You didn't suffer anything. Somebody was actually harmed. Somebody might need to be in therapy for the rest of their lives. And it's like, I'm not saying you get off necessarily scot-free, but it's like essentially there's no reparation done. You know what I'm saying? Like that person did not have to pay anything in order
I
to
hear
show
you.
restitution or anything like that. And it's like,
I hear you.
I guess what I'm saying is like I'm interested in finding ways to be a gracious society when we see people have actually paid a cost
Okay.
and paid to actually did some effort to
And
repair and
I mean,
restore.
I don't think that's too much to ask. If I'm
But
being honest.
this isn't a case of it. You know what I'm saying? Like I want to be clear when I say this type of predatory behavior and this type of sexual assault and abuse and yet just predatory behavior. We don't see any evidence thereof that any forms of reparation or restoration has been done. Like R. Kelly has not paid any cost as far as I can tell in this. So it's
So
like,
and I'm gonna go back to something I said at the beginning, and I think that I brought forgiveness forgiveness up because I wanted to get back to this. What price? Because everyone has something different that they want him to deal with. There's something. I mean, Damon John basically was like, let us convict you, then you go in your cell and kill yourself. Something like that. He said something
I'm not. I don't
along those
talk. That's
lines.
not my language.
No, and I wouldn't think that it would be, but what what is the price? What price does he need to pay?
So that gets interesting for me. I don't know, and I don't have a problem saying I don't know what the cost R. Kelly needs to pay, but this becomes a synecdoche for other men who are predators. It becomes a synecdoche for other women who are predators, and more importantly, it becomes a synecdoche for other white folk in our society who are predators. Nobody pays a cost for these things unless there's a way in which the legal process can be enacted and they go to jail for it. These people don't really pay a cost for it because you're right. They're still our pastors. They're still our leaders. They're still our entertainers. We still pay money to go see them. And it's kind of like nobody else is really paying a cost for it. So why does R. Kelly need to be the poster boy for it? Because then it becomes racialized in a very different way. You know what I'm saying? Like, does R. Kelly need to be the first person in our society that we see begin to pay some of these costs for this? Not, I mean, it's notwithstanding like the Harvey Weinsteins and whatnot, or I'm trying to think some other white people. But you see what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. I think we're in uncharted territory a little bit. But part of me is just like, cut them off. Like, they are pariah. We don't fuck with them anymore. They need to go off and take whatever money they got and just go do and go scoot off into the corners of the world and live out the rest of their life away from the rest of us.
Right. Tiff?
I don't even know how to have an opinion on this. My heart hurts for the victims of any age, and of any predator. And I am still disgusted, not just with people, but even with myself, for it taking so long for me to see the problem and to acknowledge that there was a problem. There have been a couple of instances where I have been charged with forgiving someone. And I have found it difficult to do in some cases. And in this case, first of all, I am not judge and jury. It's not my place. But judge and jury didn't work in this situation. And I have a huge problem with that. I have a huge problem with the man that was on the docuseries saying, I didn't like them. I didn't like what they had on. I just didn't believe any of the women. That broke my heart. And to even hear Chance the Rapper admit he didn't believe or value the women's experiences.
That was a different story for me.
I like I said, I'm not judge and jury. But this one's hard.
Okay. Kia, as a parent, if you had a child in this situation, how do you think you would cope?
I don't think my first thought would be on forgiveness. It would be on making sure my child got the healing that they needed, and prioritizing their needs. And I think we say forgiveness helps people heal. And I think there comes a time when you have to get to a place where you can let go and not carry that. But I think that's a process, and we need to be honest about what that process looks like and not rush to the forgiveness before we do the healing.
I definitely don't think it's instant. And I think that I was kind of interested. I want to bring Gerald back for a second because Gerald, you didn't really say that, like you did say it's not your place. You're not the judge or the jury, but it seemed like I felt like I heard that forgiveness would come a little easier or swifter in your case.
It would have to. I can't speak for anybody else in their journey. It's not because of who he is and what he did. It's about my mental capacity. I can't sit there and carry that type of anything for anybody. And if we're going to do this to a point where we actually want to enact change, let's sit there and feel this way about everybody and stop bitching about things in the moment, because we really haven't ever canceled what's his name, Chris Brown, or anybody else in our community who have done terrible things. Like, if we're going to do it, let's forgive them for ourselves and move on and cancel them properly. Because I promise you, unfortunately, next week it's not going to be a thing. We've seen this man since 17 years since the scandal. He's had 11 albums that were in the top 10, 5 of them number ones, and everybody forgave him when he came out with the album "Happy People You Saved Me." So I say that
I think that's a valid perspective. As all of the perspectives shared were, I think that, and we really haven't unpacked this piece at all. We live in a cancel culture society right now. Like, everybody's canceled every other day, but the news cycle is so fast, and then King Ass Clown, takes over anytime someone's getting too much shine. Like, I'm pretty sure, like, he's jumping up and down right now because R. Kelly's kind of probably pissing him off because he's like he's getting coverage. But I think when it comes to cancel culture, I think people are canceling R. Kelly, and rightfully so. It's just a very difficult thing to do because he's very embedded in the heartbeat of the music, so much of the music that we know and have loved. So you're hard pressed to find a Black person. They may not like R. Kelly, or they may not think they like R. Kelly, but they like some music that he made for somebody, whether it's Britney Spears, Michael Jackson, B2K, wherever you fall on the spectrum, Maxwell, Fortunate. Like, when you think about how deep it is, and I guess how deep your commitment to this cancellation is, I think that's a whole separate conversation. When it comes to forgiveness, I think that naturally, I think I would get to the point of forgiving probably anybody, because I just don't like to hold that. I don't think that because and I think it's partially because it's sensationalized, and partially because we are compartmentalizing it, and also because it's a very outrageous thing right now. I don't think that everyone that's outraged understands the magnitude of these issues. And I think that, and I'm not discrediting anyone, I'm not saying anyone here doesn't understand it, but I think that when we talk about the general public, and we talked about this yesterday, Tiff, you alluded to this, in our culture, a fast ass girl at 13 is a fast ass girl, and everybody's telling her that she's fast. So from her auntie to her mama to her grandmama, she looks a certain way, she's wearing something a certain way. That culture is that's just our culture. And because of that, I think that diminishes how impactful this situation really is, because similar to the way that, and I hate that this is the truth, similar to the way that our 12-year-old boys are looked at as grown-ass men in the eyes of the police, our 12-year-old girls are looked at as grown-ass women and sexualized as grown-ass women to near about everybody. So, coming back to forgiveness, it's a hard thing for me, because I know that I understand the magnitude of it and why this is so problematic, and how impressionable a mind is at such a young age. And it's just something we got to continue to unwrap.
Agreed. Yeah, I know we need to wrap this up, but before we wrap it up, Kia, you're our first parent perspective since we've been doing this series. So from your perspective, is there any situation or can you at all, because I'm not a parent and I can't fathom even considering it, but was there at any point when you were watching the docuseries that you were listening to the parents and saying, okay, I could see how maybe they thought it was okay or whatever? Or would you, over the last few years, pre-trial or post-trial, would there have been a situation in which you would have allowed your child to go to an R. Kelly concert? Because my mom texted me and she was not saying she understood it all, but she texted me while she was watching us talk and she said, some of those parents said, well, he wasn't convicted when the indictment was handed down, and some of the parents thought that was okay. How do you feel about that?
I don't think that was okay at all. I think that's bad judgment at best. Because, and I feel like this has come up in conversations throughout the years when people were listening to R. Kelly or when they were working with him. We have asked the question, but would you let your child around them? And it's always a resounding no. So I think at best, this was bad judgment. And you can't be with your kids at all times. Teenagers can be sneaky, but so there is that. Like, you can trick a parent and you can sneak out the house and you can do this. I think we've all done things as teenagers that our parents have no idea about.
I was perfect.
So there is that aspect, and I don't think you can blame a parent for that. Parents aren't present with their kids 24 hours a day. However, what it also comes back to me is having honest conversations about sex and sexuality with your kids so that they are empowered with the knowledge to make better decisions about who to be around, about what healthy relationships look like. So if you're talking to your 12 and 14-year-old about sex and relationships, and you're talking to them about what it's like for an older man to be attracted to you. Like, a lot of this has been normalized in our culture to be with older men or to have a crush on an older man. Like, I had crush on grown men when I was young. Fortunately, none of the grown men I had crushes on like little girls. So that kept me safe. Right.
Thank God. Right. But like, that's just right. Why we got to thank God for that. But I feel you. I think that it's huge. It's detrimental for us not to have these conversations. And so, what advice would you give parents that haven't had the conversation so far, or don't know that they should have had the conversations at this point? Because you're right. We talked about cunning kids. Kids are going to be kids. There was a comment yesterday that a girl was like, I've been into older guys since I was 13. Okay, and that they shouldn't have been into you. That's that on that, and that it's just if we're not checking that behavior, and I think it comes down to us as community people, pieces of the community. We have to check that behavior, and we got to check people. I'm a checker. We got to be like that.
Talk to your kids about sex, and talk to them about sex earlier before they need it. Start in elementary school. And even
especially nowadays.
Yeah. Because there was a time, I believe my son was he was 8 in 2nd grade. And I asked him, I was like, do the kids at your school talk about sex? And he was like, yeah. And if your child is going to school and hearing conversations about sex before you have the conversation with them, you're already behind the 8 ball. And you need to get in front of that. And it goes back to give your children permission to say no to adults. When your child is uncomfortable around an adult, whether it's an uncle or anyone, give them permission to say no, and don't force hugs and kisses and stuff, because they need to know that their body is theirs and they don't have to be in relationships. And talk to them about the power dynamics of relationships.
That's good. That's really good, Kia. I agree. And I think to add to that, just stop relying on your school and your church to teach your children about sex in the first place. First of all, the church ain't even really talking about it. And the school is talking about, this body part, that body part, and all of that, but they're still not teaching about sex. I think if we could just be more open as a community and as parents and as aunts and uncles and all of that about having the conversations and the dialogue that needs to be had around sex and not make it such an uncomfortable and taboo topic as it's been in the church for generations, we might be in a better situation.
No, I mean, and that's just it. The conversations have to happen. We have to make the decisions to have the conversation. And so often we're too busy. I said it yesterday. I completely admitted to that. We have to teach ourselves as a culture. And those of you that are parents that have friends that don't have children, you got to talk to us and let us know, look out for him or look out. Because if I don't think about it, I said it yesterday and I said it proudly, I ain't got no damn kids. And I don't live around kids that I really know. I live in a city where these kids up here, I don't know these kids, so I don't think about it, but I should be. My eyes should be tuned. Like, even if regardless of the situation, we should be tuned into that, and we should be a part of that. We're gonna wrap up with final words, and Monica, we'll just bring you back and let you have your final word. And of course, thanks for being a part of the broadcast tonight.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. I've had a great time with this discussion. And I do definitely think that there's, a multitude of things at play here when we speak about R. Kelly and, just responsibility and the culture and whatnot. So, I mean, I look forward to speaking further about it tomorrow.
All right, thank you so much, and of course we appreciate that. Tiff, I'm sorry, Monica. It's getting late. Kia, of course, thank you so much. And Kia, I'm sorry. It's late. If you know me, I've been up since 3:30 talking about today's grader. So, Kia, your last word.
Take care of the people around you. And it's easy to point fingers, but I think this is a great opportunity to really question our behavior and what we tolerate, what we ignore, and what we choose not to address in our own communities.
Got you. I think that's amazing. It's key. We appreciate you being a part. Hopefully you'll join us for the final installment tomorrow if you got some time, because your opinion was very valuable. And man, it's a hard conversation. It's a hard thing to unpack. Josh.
Kind of on the forgiveness piece. I remember when the Charleston shooting happened and people were like, I forgive him. For me, I think rather than having a theology of forgiveness, we need to have a theology of anger. We need to be outraged. We need to be angry about this. And usually when people are angry and outraged, that's when change happens, because you got fed up with how the system functions and whatnot. So I think we need to be angry about this and let the anger and the outrage be something that fuels change and the societal change.
Man, that's key. But I didn't think about it like that. Like, we probably collectively should be angry, because there are some thoughts that we would have, different thoughts that we would have if we got angry about it before we started trying
how
to
do we
come up
forgive and how do we have
with.
grace? No, we should be angry.
Yeah,
Live in anger.
I get it. Gerald, your final word.
Oof. He sort of changed it a little bit. You can be angry, but be angry before you forgive. I just told somebody, I might whip somebody's ass before I get a place of forgiveness. So, I mean, forgiveness is the ultimate place, not where you have to get to immediately. So there might be some terrible things that happen in between, but I can't let anything that I do in my life be fueled by anger. But what I wanted to say is, I hope that not just for R. Kelly, but anything we do, whether it be political or whatnot, that we take this moment to not make something a moment and not something that's going to disappear next week. This is why we haven't seen change with a lot of things. This is why R. Kelly has gotten off more than once. This is why we haven't had certain changes in our community and politics. And I hope that this is just a lesson that people need to wake up and do more after you're angry. Like, what happens next?
So real. Tiff.
I mean, I am going to kind of pull back on what I said, something I said last night of, and Kia mentioned part of it, of taking care of the people around you. I'm going to take that just one step further and say, also take care of yourself. The thing everybody remembers about being on the plane is put your mask on before you try to put someone else's mask on. Take care of yourself. Make sure you are healing as an individual, because you cannot properly serve your community, the people around you, or anyone else if you are not doing okay yourself. So let's work on our own healing in addition to helping to take care of those around us, because oftentimes we put that second part before the former of taking care of ourselves, and it does us a disservice, and in turn does others around us a disservice because they're not getting us at our best.
That's major, and I think that's enough. I don't have a final word aside from thanks for tuning in. Of course, this entire conversation will be on our network, playing on bossfm.com. You can get our app from your app store and listen to this discussion back. We'll post it and clips from the video as well, and then we'll come and try to summarize everything. I have the final conversation tomorrow, and I think we're looking to come with solutions. So if you tune in tomorrow, if you're stumbling across this or you're listening to it throughout the day and it's going to be airing tonight, we want you to tune in, join the conversation, and come with some solutions, because I think that if we don't bring solutions to this, not just how do we handle R. Kelly, but how do we handle this issue in our community? How do we attack this and prevent ourselves and prevent our community from perpetuating this cycle of sweeping things under the rug and allowing and enabling predators in our communities and our churches and our families in our spaces? We have to undo that, and the responsibility lies on us to get that done. So thanks for tuning in tonight. I am literally spent, but we'll be back with this and more tomorrow. Good night.
Good night.